We'll quickly move on to the next. Next is built for repeat is the topic, another brilliant topic to discuss on today. Designing brands that customer choose again. I have a brilliant set of panel who's going to come here. The chairs are ready, the mics are ready. I'm going to go one by one. First up, may I please request Anuj Sharma to kindly come and join us, please. Co-founder of Kapiva to kindly come and join us, please. One of India's largest Ayurvedic rooted wellness brand. A big round of applause. May I please request Mr. Bhavesh Singhal to kindly come and join us, please. Head of P&L for fitness service at Curefit to kindly come and join us, please. A seasoned growth and e-commerce leader who has scaled consumer internet business across Myntra, Medlife, the Good Glam Group, and now Curefit. One more time, Naiyya Saggi to kindly come and join us, please. She's going to extend this conversation. A big round of applause for her. And lastly, a good set of panel requires a very strong moderator. Please put your hands together for Shivani Srivastava, head of PhonePe, ads and head of developer business at Indus Appstore to kindly come and join us, please. She's incubated and scaled a multi-million-dollar ads business from scratch at PhonePe with about 15 years of experience across partnership, monetization, and strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, single-handedly, we'll give a big round of applause for the panel. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I think I really need to repeat, you all do look really alive after lunch, which is not so common. But thank you so much, everyone, and a very good afternoon to all of you. I think we're entering a very fascinating chapter in the Indian D2C space. In the last few years, I think finally the whole noise of launching has now given its way to the art of enduring. And as Naiyya pointed out in her earlier conversation as well, I think this is the era where the earlier playbooks will not hold true anymore. The digital ad costs are just hitting the ceiling. And the brands that are surviving aren't the ones with most necessarily the biggest marketing budgets. And that's exactly why we're here. We are here to talk to three people who are building brands, who have built brands that have mastered the art of making their brand a part of everyday life of the consumer. They've been able to move the consumer from getting to buy to getting to belong. So that's the introduction of why we are here. I'm Shivani Srivastava. I head PhonePe ads and Indus developer Appstore business. And very interestingly, why I am here is because platforms like PhonePe aren't just the finishing lines of payments anymore. We are discovery engines that bridge the gap and connect transactional data to intent. And with Indus App Store, we finally have a local for local play that is helping brands talk to 200 million next Indian users in line. But that's about me. I have a powerhouse of a panel here. I think introductions are done, so I'm going to quickly jump in. Anuj, let me start with you. I think you are in a very interesting industry that has had an evolution of its own. Healthcare was for a very long time seen as something reactive. You take something when you're sick, and Kapiva has flipped it over to become proactive daily wellness as a brand. How have you done that with Kapiva? How have you basically reduced the friction of repeat behavior that traditionally existed with the churans of the world, with the Ayurvedic concepts of the world?
Sure, thanks, Shivani. Thanks for having me here. Firstly, you're absolutely right. I think the entire ecosystem has actually moved from being very reactive to now becoming a lot more proactive when it comes to healthcare, right? Obviously, COVID has helped a lot, right? People have become very health conscious, right? Although there is a hidden nuance when you talk about becoming proactive about healthcare, and that is actually you need people to then start building good habits, right? Because there is no trigger which is leading them to do something, right? They want to live healthy lives, so now they need to change a lot of habits in their life, right? Now, habits, as we all know, are difficult things to build. We have all tried to eat healthy, sleep on time, go to the gym, right? These are difficult tasks to do, right? So in the healthcare business is actually at a very high level. We guys are actually in the business of building habits for people, right? Our entire retention strategy is dependent on whether we can make people do the right thing in their life. That's the entire strategy, right? Now, What happens is when you want people to build habits, you obviously need to understand the customer quite well, right? So in a way, a retention strategy actually starts before the customer makes the first purchase, right? Because you need to get the right set of people in the ecosystem, where you can then invest resources on them to make them achieve whatever they are achieving, right? Or whatever they want to achieve. Because if people are not willing to make the changes, then it's the acquisition is of no use to me at the end of the day, right? Just talking about habits for just 10 seconds, right? And we have all read a lot of theory on habits. Habits at a very high level, they depend on three things: the inherent motivation of the person, the physical activity required to do the task at hand, and obviously getting reminded of the task, right? These three things are very important for us, for any habit that needs to be built, right? Now, how this plays in our acquisition strategy is that whenever a person comes into the acquisition funnel, right, we have to be sure that this person is actually go through the changes that we want them to do, right? And we want to avoid people who are just have seen a recent spike in motivation because of maybe an event in their life, or suddenly they saw a few extra kilos on their weighing machine, right? These spikes will eventually die down, right? Because motivation fluctuates quite a lot, right? So what we do in our funnels is we actually create some sort of constructive friction in the system, so that the ones who are not just there for impulse buy are just removed from the funnel altogether. Just quickly going to the second part, the physical activity that is required to do the task. So just to give you an example, Shilajit is one of our main products. Theoretically, the most potent form of Shilajit is actually a resin form. But obviously, it's very difficult to use. You have to take a spoon, put it in hot water, mix for 3 minutes. Then when you drink it, it's not very easy on the palate, right? Now, I would not want every single customer of mine to buy that, right? I would rather have the new beginner to actually buy something which is easier to consume, say a gummy, right? Which also tastes like a candy, right? So, because when the motivation dips, the person will not go through the effort of doing this mixing every day, right? And third most important thing is when the person is making the purchase decision, we actually ensure that certain triggers are built in the user's head. So for example, a gym goer will tell them, hey, you know what? Whenever you drink the protein shake, just mix into your shaker and just drink it, right? Or if you're a diabetic, just mix it in your atta and have it with your roti, right? Or something of that sort, so that the cognitive load of consuming the product goes away. So when all these three things are combined in the acquisition funnel, that is when we get the right retention in the future from these guys who are getting acquired. So for us, acquisition strategy actually plays a very important role in the retention strategy.
That's very interesting. And I think this is what it takes for modern Ayurveda to become a part of everyday life. Very interesting. I think even the friction bit that you spoke about, because you're right. I think temporary spikes don't lead to lifelong changes. But I think jumping into Bhavesh, I think you're in the other hard space of healthcare fitness. And I think fitness is the classic example of delayed gratification. I think, you put in the work now, the results could come months later, and you just have to keep at it. So how has Cult been able to battle this out? Are there gamification, repeats, behaviors that you use? But how have you guys really cracked this?
So, like Anuj said, right? Fitness is about habit building as a whole. Eating, food, sleep, exercise. Uh, the whole cult as a brand is built to make it easy for you to exercise. Our biggest proposition being Pass, which allows you access to multiple different centers, increase activity of customer by 30%, right? So, over the last 10 years, Cult has built an ecosystem where our average activity of our member is 2.5x average activity of any other gym in the country, right? Uh, there are specific habit building program. I don't know how many of you know about Cult Ninja. It's a very well known habit building where we celebrate when somebody builds a habit in the center. And that celebration, one, motivates the person who has built the habit, but it motivates the other people in the center to see that somebody is getting a certificate, somebody is getting a product for that, to build habit around it. I believe we have around 1 million people right now who are trying to be ninja. There are some 200K people who have achieved the ninja status. And this has driven the activity and habit building for people significantly well for us. So a lot of effort for us goes around this activity. But if you look at fitness journey, right, from the time of going to a gym, 65% are new users, 80% of new users have first time gym experience with Cult. So making it comfortable, not making it intimidating, having an onboarding program where almost every single new user is going through that to understand what they're supposed to do. These things have built a general activity, but Ninja has made a very large change in this. And the second thing is this, right? Unlike most businesses where the next activity lead to a next transaction, for us, there is a transaction at the start of an year and the next transaction will happen after 12 months. And you will be surprised that we actually communicate a lot more to customers once he has given money to us than before it. And all of this is about motivating the customer. Sometimes telling that the person is going to lose the streak and then he will not become a ninja or he shouldn't become a ninja. Sometimes actually penalizing people in terms of reducing number of days. So all of this is done, tried, tested to push you towards coming to the center. And group classes again for cult, right? It's about you just show up and you don't have to think about anything. You just show up and that 1 hour is passed, your exercise is done. It's the easiest and the best form for building habit building. So the cult is about building habit for fitness.
That's amazing. And I think safe to say that I think the generation today is one of the healthiest generation that has been in like a really long time. So I think
Actually take the credit for High Rock's success in Bangalore. It was like
oh,
4x.
oh wow.
Because cult is so penetrated in Bangalore.
That's amazing. I think times are changing and how. Perfect. I think Naiyya, you are in a very different space. I think unlike both of them where it's a everyday use case, while your product does an everyday use case, it is a product which has the purchase frequency to be very, very low. And the cost is obviously high. In your case, how do you really make your product in a way where it is a part of everyday life enough so that when the next purchase for another home appliance has to happen, it happens through you? Because I think it's a very different context from where Anuj and Bhavesh are coming from.
That's a great question. And we are everyday design and technology, EDT. So we jolly well do that job well, right? So I think there are three pieces to this. One is the product itself. So when you see a product and if that product merits being in a place or a space that you frequent daily, then that becomes part of your daily life, at least by way of a visual cue. And therefore, when we design the Luma, and that'll kind of be a design philosophy across all our products, it is something that you will feel proud to have on your countertop, on your office workspace, in your living room, right? Places that you live or enter daily. So I think that is one very core part of it. The other important thing, I think, just on the product side, is something we believe, which is called universal design principles, right? Because if you look at an Indian home, it is not something that only I will use daily. I have Sonu Bhaiya at home, who I'm very lucky to have. He's my lifeline. He cooks up all our meals and he cooks up a storm now. And he loves using the Luma. So I actually don't use the Luma maybe daily because I don't have time to half the time. But it's Sonu Bhaiya who's the biggest evangelist of the Luma in my household, right? And I see this actually across the households that have now become part of the EDT family. The second thing I think is how do you make and unpack and unlock more and more, and this is coming from my consumer app days. Consumer apps, as you all know all too well, is one of the most unforgiving markets. So you have to unpack personalized value daily for the consumer to merit a space on their home phone screen, right? So similar. If it's a product that's lying on your countertop, but you're not using it daily or you're not using it maybe, forget a DAO use case, maybe a WOW use case, you're going to throw it away. You're going to forget about it. You're going to buy the next product from us, right? You're not going to talk about it. So that's where Recipe Ramsey comes in, what I mentioned, right? Which is where based on who you are, what your aspirations, your goals and your eating choices or what's in your fridge that day or what's on your ingredient, your kitchen countertop that particular morning, right? The biggest problem people face is, aaj khane mein kya banaye? Every morning, 8 a.m. across the country, the one question everybody gets asked, Didi, aaj khane mein kya banaye? Yeah, you're thinking, aaj khane mein kya banaye? That's where Recipe Ramsay comes in and helps you solve that problem, right? Where it understands your needs from I'm trying to lose weight after having my second baby, Raya. Really trying. I have to join cult, clearly. So that's really where something like Recipe Ramsay comes in, right? It's on your WhatsApp. What Sonu Bhaiya has done is one example. He's added it to his favorites on WhatsApp. And every morning he'll take a picture of the ingredients in our fridge and say, Didi, Recipe Ramsay मुझे बोल रहा है लूमा में ये भिंडी की सब्जी बना सकते हैं. So okay, chalo, done, sorted. Right? So that's the second thing. How do you build an ecosystem which prompts you based on your contextualizations to use it more frequently? And the third is social proof. And that's where when you buy the Luma, you become part of our community. Somebody asked about community, right? And that's where you see other people using Luma and getting the most out of the Luma, or talking about EDT and the love for EDT, right? The organic love for EDT. And that prompts you, hey, I didn't have maybe the first, the best experience. I didn't understand how to use this function. But seems like 20 other people know how to use it really well. Let me give it another shot. And that is a very nice virtuous cycle that kicks in. So I think these are the three things that seem to be working for us in our mission to be everyday design and technology.
No, I think very interesting, and I think I love the Recipe Ramsay idea in general. I think because how, like you said, I think it's not just you. I think a lot of times when we hear the word made for global kitchens, we realize that I think there are more people in our families who, and a support system who helps run our homes. And I think if everybody can brought into the concept of health and fitness and healthy eating together, I think nothing like it. But I think just building on to your community point, and I think you've been a cheerleader of the whole community to commerce concept. I think the two questions which comes up a lot of times when we're talking to D2C brands is, one, how do you deal with community fatigue? And two, I think, while there's so much that you want to do with the community, you said you take feedbacks and you get them involved and maybe use a product feature which they were not using. But how do you really ensure that the conversation does not end there, but drives back to the checkout page? And this is not just for you, but from your experience across Baby Chakra and Good Clam, are there learnings that you want to share on how do you ensure that the conversation doesn't get stopped there and it should lead to the checkout which is waiting to happen?
So anybody who's building for community to commerce is going to be very disappointed. Just saying it out loud. It is not about community to commerce anymore. I think it's about community to trust. And that's where, and the second thing is, as a founder, if you don't have a real passion for communities, please don't do it. Because it is a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time. There's also a science and a art behind community building, right? And not everybody will and needs to get it, bluntly. I think what we look at community is, when you're building a product like EDT, you're genuinely building for daily lives, right? And therefore, for us, the feedback is super critical. And it is not just about taking the feedback, it's also about filtering the feedback, but also like understanding what context that feedback is coming from. So it is not like product, interviews per se. It is actually about saying, this is the context this person operates from. And maybe there's a cohort of like this type of person in my community. Let's understand the double click behind why this came up. So I think what we end up doing is, it is about saying that community, for it to build trust, is most critical. We don't really focus on the commerce aspect as much. And I think that's a very nice byproduct. So to give you an example, when we launched on Amazon with EDT, and actually on D2C as well, we had a waitlist of 11,000 on D2C. On Amazon, we had a 26,000 notify me on Amazon. When we launched, we were number 2 on hot new releases right after Philips's very, very well marketed Dream Cook product. And in fact, we climbed up the BSR ratings very quickly to about 18, Amazon's Choice, etc. And Amazon was actually phenomenally surprised by our success as well. And I actually attribute that to the fact that the community talked about us. I'm not saying they maybe bought us, maybe many of them did, but they actually talked about us when we launched on these different channels. And they knew who the team behind it was, how we built it. So there was trust that they were able to translate and share. So I look at community to trust more than community to commerce, really.
That's very interesting. And I think that's where the community feels that they're co-creating with you, right? And it's not just saying that, hey, here is what I feel about the product. Very interesting. And I think good insight for everybody that it's not necessarily community to commerce. And I would also say, breather, that don't do it if you're not into it. But I think that takes me to India's biggest community. I think Cult has been the biggest fitness community that India has ever seen. In general, how much of the community do you think is the reason why somebody shows up after those 12 months to Cult? versus the actual workout? I know you spoke about Ninja and all the triggers, but I think in general, a lot of consumers today think of cult as, I can do this as well, I can do that as well. And the community part just happens as you keep going in. So intentionally, which one of the two is the one that you think is driving the most amount of those renewals that happen after a year?
Um, Hard to say actually. I agree with Naiyya. It's about community to trust as a journey, which will lead to eventually sticking customer to you. But as a cult as a business, you practically feel the member of the center is running the center, right? So we have two more programs I will talk about. One is Cult Champion. It's a program where we actually recruit people who have changed their life with fitness journey. We're not paying a single rupee. We're just calling them Cult Champions. It's about prestige. Around 10,000 people fill this form every quarter. 200 get selected eventually. These people build community inside their centers. They build community inside their locality. They have some privileges. They actually help us rectify the issue much faster than we would have done with a ticket system. They will get people as a referral to improve fitness and all those things, right? And what it has leads to this, we realized that these people were organizing fitness even outside cult. And we kind of facilitated this and created a platform of them. There are some 500 cult champions right now who creates 2,000 events every month. 70,000 people participate in these events every month, multiple times, and there is no transaction happening on this, right? So there's and this is cult branding. So there's a cult run happening on Agara Lake, which we know it's happening. We are not organizing it. Our cult champion is organizing it because he's enthusiastic about fitness. He want to share about it, and people join and do the cult run. So it is a large community platform for us, which we believe will become cult champion. Will this lead to revenue or not? Not sure, but it will definitely lead to a fitness, and which is where we will get eventually. As a customer, we believe we are a good brand. We have the best product in the market. If you are serious about fitness, Cult is the best place to go. So you don't have to think about it.
Wow, hard truths. I think, Anuj, yours is not a community-led play, as you were chatting earlier. How do you, so there's this entire segment of India that has always been into Ayurveda, but then there's this large chunk who probably did not believe in it as much, or would not use it as often. So how have you adopted the whole consultative commerce? And I think we spoke about it earlier and when I was chatting with you offline. How do you really have driven this entire segment of people who did not follow Ayurveda naturally to come into this modern take? And what are some of the levers that you've used that have helped you actually drive this entire attention in this segment?
Sure. So, see, first of all, let's agree that healthcare is a trust-based sector, right? If you don't have trust, you are not going to just simply put something in your body and keep consuming it for a long period of time, right? So, trust is very important, obviously, in healthcare. Obviously, like you said, right, the traditional Ayurvedic brands did not need to do a lot of scientific research or clinical studies or anything of that sort because they were dealing with a TG that was already a believer in Ayurveda, right? We are actually not dealing with that TG, right? The current TG is actually very hungry for information. They have they have access to the GPTs of the world. They want proofs, they want scientific validation as to, they will not just agree that or accept that my parent told me that you consume this and it will get solved. They will not agree to it, right? They would like to see what is causing it to actually work, right? So that's why this was very important for us. We have actually invested heavily in clinical studies. In fact, our R&D lab is actually bigger than our HQ office, right? The highest paid employee in our company is actually the R&D head, right? As we speak, we have 2 clinical studies going on with Manipal hospitals in AIMS Delhi. We also have consciously, because Ayurveda also suffers with the problem of standardization, because every single person has his own ways of dealing with the problem. So what we started was, we started giving out lab reports, which is just common in the in general in healthcare industry, but not as common in Ayurveda, right? So now we set the norm. Now almost everyone is doing it, at least in Ayurveda space. But now when you think about it, you will feel that, okay, these things are important for driving acquisitions, right? How does it help in retention, right? And Bhavesh touched upon it when he spoke about motivation going down, right? Now, what happens is that, like I spoke about the spikes and then the motivation going down. When the motivation goes down, you need to still talk to the consumer and tell him that, hey, you know what, this works. Here's the proof. Please be at it. Don't give up right now, right? There's these many people who have, achieved the goal that you're trying to achieve, right? Another aspect to it, on the flip side, is that if you give them a reality check that, you know what, uh, 50% of women who suffer from PCOS, or now they changed the name, PMOS is the new term that is being used. 50% of women who suffer from PMOS will end up having diabetes by the age of 40, right? Or something like, you're a pre-diabetic, if it converts to proper diabetes, it's very highly likely that you will also develop cardiovascular disease. So don't give up. Keep at it, right? Now, both of these things act as strong motivators for people. And especially if a person of authority is actually communicating this, say a doctor, then it becomes even more powerful, right? So we actually have almost 200 odd doctors in our ecosystem who are actually continuously talking to people, telling them what they can do to change their behavior. Obviously, it's free of cost. We don't charge anything to the consumer for this thing, but this entire ecosystem working together, of where we are giving them scientific evidence, there are claims that we are making, and a doctor saying all the things. All these things actually helped us build a very strong retention ecosystem as well. So this was the way we did that.
Very interesting. So I think while for both of you, community was a way to drive trust, I think for Kapiva, trust was about more transparency, bringing more confidence into the product by all the doctor consultations, by investing in the R&D. And I think trust is the biggest retention factor that anyhow consumers today play. I think safe to say that I think AI is the buzzword. So I have to ask each one of you on how are you leveraging AI as a retention lever? Anuj, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So I'll just connect it to what I just said, right? I think in health and medicine, AI is going to disrupt the market, right? Sooner or later, that is going to happen. It is probably already happening, right? I'll just talk about a very small use case that in Kapiva. I spoke about doctor consultation. I spoke about standardization that is missing in Ayurveda in general. So whenever a doctor goes into a call with a patient, we have an AI agent sitting along with the doctor. Real time, the agent is actually noting down different parameters that the doctor is, or the patient is telling the doctor, so that the doctor can focus on the patient. He or she doesn't need to focus on noting down different aspects, right? Parallelly, it is also telling real time that these are the questions that you should be asking. You have missed this particular question, you should be asking this question. It is also judging the sentiment of the customer and real time showing that to the doctor, hey, it seems like the trust is going down. Just the tone of the voice needs to change, something of that sort. And finally, when the consultation is done, it shows a prescription to the doctor. The doctor can obviously edit it. But when I do all these things together, I have 80 to 90% standardized protocol that gets followed, right? And because we as non-doctors cannot listen into the doctor-patient conversation, right? But I get a good understanding that if my doctors are performing well or not, if the sentiment of the person, of the patient is good or not, right? Those things I get very easily, and that actually helps in the retention.
Amazing. I think standardization of even the quality of the consultation. Bhavesh, how are you guys using like AI?
Again, AI is literally everything, right? Even the post-purchase activity call, if member is not coming, is there. We are improving internal processes. But again, in the fitness journey, integrating with a nutritionist, which was again a manual person talking on WhatsApp to now on the app. We have a smart workout plan where for a new person figure out what to do, what exercise not to do. And what we're trying to build is to figure out a way if a customer gives an approval for taking a video, the posture correction can be done by AI instead of a trainer helping you every single time. So, assuming this product will come live very soon, but the idea is every time you go into the gym, the app can tell you what you need to do today. and it will be able to also tell you if you're doing something wrong during exercise. So safety is a decent concern in the business. If you don't do it right, you can actually hurt yourself. That's why you need trainers. So we're trying to figure out if AI can do it in this. But a lot of processes are getting disrupted with AI, so that keeps going on.
Naiyya, what about you?
So I think we've talked about recipe Ramsey, and I can also, I think similar to Bhavesh's experience, we do have a customer experience agent called Naiyya, who responds to you in less than 0.8 mm. And then triages to a human in the team, Tejas, who's amazing, and the rest of the consumer experience team. But I'll tell you, like, to maybe just from my new industry now, but we've been working on for the last more than a year now, on product development and on brand. So, my co-founder has been an industrial designer. He's built both physical AI as well as regular devices for the last many years. And our team that we have is a very different, very hatke team. We have folks in who were building EVs, folks in who've left their jobs in the US, come to build with us. And they think like mad people. So they've basically been obsessed with how do you launch better, faster, and really think differently about this space, like first principles thinking. So when we were working on the Luma as well, it seems like a very simple glass bowl. And now after we launched, now quite a few like larger brands who've also launched this glass bowl kind of air fryer. But when we were building it, right, we actually saved, I would say, more than 8 months in development because we were able to model out the ergonomics of our glass bowl right from, and like there was a certain sort of almost like a limitation we had in the motor size because we wanted to keep the footprint of the device small. So it's a 1500 watt motor and it's a modern home we're building for. So the device footprint has to be small. So with that challenge in mind, how do you optimize the airflow, the heat flow, the even temperature and the cooking, right? So there's a certain ergonomics in the glass bowl you have to optimize for. So basically the team kind of like just went mad modeling out and very, very rapidly. And therefore, we arrived at almost like a golden ratio, which when we gave to our manufacturer for making the basic mold, the initial mold, it was way faster, right? Like typically it would take you at least 2 or 3 hits until you arrive at that golden ratio. We were doing it like 3 steps ahead. So that's one example of, I think, product development. Even in the programming, we have something called Nutri-Retain. So with the Luma, you're actually cooking Indian foods better, tastier. We, again, going back to my consumer tech / healthcare background, we do a lot of clinical testings as well. So we actually test the food cooked in the Luma versus other air fryers in a third-party NABL lab. And we found not just the sensorials, but also the nutrition retention was more superior in the Luma, right? But again, getting that programming, there are like a million permutation combinations, right? How do you get to it faster? We used AI. So that's on the product side. On the brand side, just a fun one. We're presenting at Design POV, and we were making bags. And what we realized was people actually loved our anime cut through like imagery. So we made an anime generator. So you can put in any image you want of anybody and you get an anime out of it. And the team and our community has gone mad. So we are like generating like I think 500 animes every 2 days now with the anime generator. But it's really fun. I think AI is like this new toy my team is playing with, but also it has significant real world consequences. And just on that note, can I plug, I'm on the governing council of the Tech Entrepreneurs Association of Mumbai team. And end of this month, we're doing Mumbai Tech Week, which is completely like this playground on everything AI. It's all demos. It'll be a lot of like just real world immersion into AI. So please, if you're in Bombay, please do come.
Thank you so much. I think very interesting take on AI from each one of you. I think in the interest of time, I think we'll open it up for Q&A for anybody who has questions for the Powerhouse panel here.
My question to Naiyya, do you use AI in accelerated life cycle testing for Luma as well?
We do, but then see, over there, we're actually quite dependent currently on our manufacturers' capabilities, right? So we still rely on their resources, and that's not fully AI capable as we look at it right now. But I think as and when we start, as we get to scale and we in-house our own sort of testing, I think hopefully that is absolutely part of the plan. Thanks for that question.
Hello, this question is for Bhavesh. Now with Google Health and the Apple Health getting really, very powerful, especially the Google Health has really launched the interactive way of, as a coach, which is already available. So where do you see things going to be there for companies like yours, and what do you see? What is the kind of pivoting, or how do you really like to bridge that gap? Because Google Health is able to give me the day to day, hour to hour, what kind of changes I would like to do, you should do, and what is my daily plan. And then again, actually, iteratively, he is continuously giving me the inputs for that. So basically, you have the agent AI, which is really trying to help me out on a very good way using my own data. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we actually excited about Google Health a lot more. We actually partner with them to enable this with our set of information that we have. We believe this will bring more people to gyms than less people. And one of the reason why people come to cult is not about gym, right? Like a lot of people live in society in Bangalore, and they go to cult. They don't go to society gym. It's about the atmosphere. It's about the peer push. It's about the community. It's about, again, I told you, right? You come to a cult center in a group class, you don't have to think about what to do. You will not feel bored in that 1 hour of fitness exercise, which people may or may not in the gym. If you are not a uh, experienced fitness enthusiast, you will actually feel you struggle to have spent 1 hour. So it's the environment of the cult centers which bring people there, and that will stay. Uh, Google Health, though, is disrupting space a lot in nutritionists in terms of providing what to do, also in terms of follow up on what you're doing today, tell me the photo of your food and everything. But still, it's a medical field. It gives answer right 90% of the time. There are cases and there are issues that happens, and that's why we are not using it directly. I'm not saying that will cause problem, but it's a risk there that will happen.
Hi, my question is for Naya. So I just want to understand, you spoke about, how brand building is changing and it's not the same anymore. You can't just go and acquire on Meta. And there was a lot of talk about how community to trust and how that will eventually translate to commerce. But even for you to build the community, my question is that how do you figure out, like, how do you acquire customers for that community itself? I think in your case, you did not even have the product. Like when you don't even have the product, how are you finding these customers who are coming and becoming a part of this community? So yeah, thank you.
That's a great question, and thanks for tracking the journey. You're right. We started the we started the journey of building the community when we didn't have a product. You're so right, and I think it goes back to. Honestly, I think it went back to saying that. So there are two ways, right? And I talk about this a fair bit, and I love like talking to founders about this if it's helpful at all. One is that there's actually you start by building the community out first, which is what we do with EDT and Baby Chakra, and the second is actually you convert your commerce buyers into community. That's what we try to do at Good Glam, by the way. Bhavesh and I, by the way, had overlapped at Good Glam significantly, though none of us want to acknowledge it, I think, anymore. But I think in the first piece, what we did was that we actually first found cohorts of people that we thought were going to appreciate what we were building at ADT, and we started off with them. And that started off with the design and tech sort of taste makers, right? People who were really obsessed with design and technology at the forefront of it. Fortunately, my co-founder Veeti had a bunch of people who followed him for his take on product building, people who followed me for brand, etc. And then the team we built also was quite like hatke. So they had their own like people who were obsessed with design and tech and like how to reimagine the future. That's how we first built out our initial community. Then what ended up happening was more I talked about ADT. A lot of the Baby Chakra moms and families actually said, what are you building now? Then they came and joined the community. So we kept on sort of building out this community. It's almost like a snowball, right? It comes down this mountain, it keeps on gathering steam. And I think it requires patience. And I made that very clear in the very beginning. So that's how you will start building the community. As a founder, you have enough and more people, and you don't even know it perhaps today, but you have enough and more people who believe in what you're building, because if what you're building really needs to exist, there are people who are facing the same problem, right? So you find them. That's your initial on the community. On the commerce side, there's a whole set of power users who've probably bought your product 3-4 times, are obsessed with you, talk about your brand organically, evangelize it, right? How do you make them into community members? I think that's the second journey you can take. And that's where I think founder or like somebody senior on your team, reaching out, spending time with them, understanding who they are, figuring out what the community's mission needs to be, staying true to it through the journey, being authentic and moderating it extremely tightly is actually the way you can do this as well. And I think that's also very surprising. We actually did this very effectively in the Good Glam experience for Sirona. We did it for Momsco, for Baby Chakra, of course, continued. We did a Glam Fam for My Glam as well. So even at scale, we saw a very, very healthy cohort who were not worried about the discounts, etc. At all. They actually just loved the community. They loved buying the products. And they would evangelize the products for us organically as well.
Thank you.
I'll
That's
just
all
do a
we could-
closing.
Yeah,
Yes. Thank you so much. I think thank you to the lovely panel. I think a lot of nuggets for everybody in the room today. I think from building the habit loop, thinking about it from the acquisition to using gamifications like the cult ninja to bring it to, and then finally to building a product where design and everyday design is at the heart of it. And more importantly, I think leveraging AI to really build healthy habits into a daily basis and evangelizing the product beyond just the person buying it, to building trust through community, through more transparency. I think there is a lot to learn from the leaders that we have here. Thank you so much, three of you, for your time and for the lovely learnings. And thank you so much, everyone, for your questions and patience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We would want all of you to stay back just for like a minute. May I please request Srikanth, I have founder Home Lane and also a Thai Bangalore board member to kindly present a token of gratitude to everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause for the panel, please?